Hey everyone, here I am in the new Porsche 911 992 generation. I might be the last YouTuber to do a review on this, but that's okay. I really didn't want to repeat the nonsense that all the other YouTubers said about it. I've watched a few other reviews and I don't tend to agree with a lot of things people say. I wanted to give my own opinion coming from several Porsches that I've owned, and of course I've driven just about every modern 911 there is out there. So I have opinions of my own. And first of all, I want to do a shout out to my local Porsche dealer, Porsche Fairfield here in Connecticut. They're always very good to me. They lend me any cars I need, so I'm always happy to support them. And in return, they're always good to me and good to my viewers by offering preset discounts on just about every model of car Porsche sells. So the first thing we want to discuss is what type of people buy a 911? Well, I think it's really two groups. The first group are people that are enthusiastic drivers that love owning a sports car and what a sports car can do for them, the thrills of pushing a car to its limits. Those people are very enthusiastic about Porsches in general, or Porsche sports cars. And the second group are people that like the prestige of owning a 911, like to be able to say, look at what I've got. And I think that group is getting larger and larger. Certainly every time I go to a Porsche driving event, I kind of despair at how many Porsche owners have no clue how to drive their cars. So Porsche have to look after both those groups. And that second group are more interested in comfort than drivability, whereas the first group are more interested in the joy of driving. So they have to balance that. And once again, with this generation, I think they've done a great job in doing that. This is still an immensely fun car to drive. I mean, it really is. Yesterday I was driving a bunch of BMW M5s, tuned M5s, 600, 700, 800 horsepower in them, with exhausts and lowering and all sorts of stuff. And I get out of those cars, which are a thrill to drive because they're so powerful, and I get back into this car and I'm blown away at how much more fun it is driving a 911 than an M car these days. You know, these things really raise your blood pressure. As soon as you put your foot down, as soon as you take a corner, the sound, the feel from the road, the 911 is still an absolute joy to drive. But on the flip side, the 911 still has to be accessible to these people that are not interested in driving, just interested in staying in the right car. And so there has to be a little more comfortable. And Porsche have managed to do that as well. This car is definitely more comfortable in almost every way than the predecessor 991 series, which I owned. This car has the 14-way seats in it, which in the 991 series I was never a big fan of. I found them far too stiff. This one, far more comfortable. I would be totally happy with the 14 ways in the 992. The car feels more roomy overall, and of course the new interior looks so modern compared to the 991. Yes, the 991 really looks dated now, and I know there's a lot of people out there that have commented on YouTube and the forums and so forth that don't like the new interior. Well, I say give it a chance, because just a few minutes in this car and it just feels like a modern, well put together interior. I love this new interior. And as for the exterior, it's the same story. A lot of people don't like the changes to the exterior, and looking at it on videos and looking at it on websites, I was about some things, but in person I absolutely adore the changes to this car. I love the new creases on the bonnet. The rear end, the shape of the rear end is completely different in person than on video. The video really doesn't capture the curves. And a good example of that is the Sport Design Pack option for the rear end. I really thought that would be the way to go for me. I thought looking at it online, it looked fantastic. But once I looked at it in person, I was, that is terrible. So yes, you really have to see these cars in person to appreciate the looks, both external and internal, and what improvements they've made. But overall, the driving experience is still thrilling, yet smooth. This really is a beautifully engineered machine. Whether you're taking a corner or accelerating down a straight, the sound of the engine, the feedback through the steering wheel and the pedals, and the overall feel of control you have with the new 911 is just another step up again. And I just cannot understand people that don't like the sound of this car. I think it is thrilling. I loved the sound of the naturally aspirated 3.8 engine. in the 991.1, and I also enjoyed the turbocharged 3 litre in the 991.2, but I think this is an improvement again. It's got a real howl to it. So from a driver's point of view, sure, it's a slightly heavier car and it's a slightly bigger car, but it's a more stable car and it's still just a total joy to drive. So what are some of the things I've noticed that are upgrades or changes from the 991.2? Well, first of all, the standard interior is fantastic. This interior trim, which looks a little bit like a carbon fiber trim, the old plasticky trim that was standard in the 991.2 and .1 was horrible. This one, I see no reason to upgrade it. In fact, I like it as much as the new carbon fiber trim. Yep, I'd be perfectly happy with a standard trim. The second is far fewer buttons, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Obviously it was a bit of a button central, the old 911, and they've gone kind of the extreme the other way with this car, with really only 4 buttons up here in the console that are changeable. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on, but they've already had some problems with this, configuring these. So these 4 buttons are different depending on what options you choose in the car, and Porsche are now putting out a cheat sheet to dealers to help them understand what buttons will be on there. Something I love is finally there's a forward track button on the steering wheel. I don't have this in my Macan, but I love this. So if you're listening to the radio, you're listening to your MP3s or whatever, you can always just hit forward track. So pleased, Porsche have finally done that. Excellent. Next, there's no Alcantara in here. This is the first modern 911 I've ever sat in that has 0 terrible Alcantara. I love it. You can of course get Alcantara on the roof and Alcantara all over the rest of the place, but yes, you know my feelings on Alcantara. It's a terrible product, so I'm glad that it's gone. Next, Apple CarPlay. Look, you don't have to plug it in anymore. It works on Bluetooth. Obviously you have to have a phone that's compatible with Bluetooth 5.1, but yes, no more plugging your phone in to get Apple CarPlay. Nice update. Active Cruise Control is now on version 3. Much nicer version. It uses cameras and radar to figure out what's happening with the traffic, so you can feel a little more confident in the Active Cruise Control's decisions, particularly when you're changing lanes or cars are changing in front of you. It's much better at recognizing what the traffic's doing. And of course, there is a big bump in power. I think there's a lot more power coming out of this car than they advertise. I am pretty sure we're producing closer to 500 horsepower out of these S models. But as you know, I'm a big believer in less is more sometimes in sports cars. And I'm starting to think that these cars are getting too powerful. Having so much power robs you of some of the fun of driving these cars. You don't get to push them as often, because you just put your foot down for a moment and bang, you're doing 110 miles an hour. You don't really get to push it. I enjoy driving the lower end Porsche cars more than the upper end. For example, I find the Turbo S 911 to be by far the most boring model in the range, because you just put your foot down and you go fast. There's no working it. There's no skill required to make that car go fast. It is dull as dishwater compared to the other models. Whereas the base Carrera or the Carrera T, those are fun cars to drive because you have to push the engine a little bit to get the most out of it. People that enjoy driving enjoy having to work the car in order to get the most out of it. So these enormously powerful engines kind of take some of that away from it. Everybody likes the extra power, but it's getting to the point where it's detracting from the enjoyment of driving a sports car. So yes, I would prefer the engine in the base model, I think. But would I buy the base model with the less powerful engine? No, I wouldn't. I like that engine more, but the base model, just like in the previous version, has its own shortcomings. Doesn't come with the better brakes, which is not a big deal, but more importantly, it won't be coming with the manual transmission, and it doesn't come with the Porsche torque vectoring, which is all important, particularly in the two-wheel drive cars. If you're driving in any sort of inclement weather or driving on tracks, you really want Porsche torque vectoring for those rear wheels. And it's not even an option on the base Carrera. So that just rules out the base Carrera, I think, for me or anyone that's going to be pushing these cars to the limits. So next I wanted to stop here talk a little bit about some of the options on here, talk a little bit about the recognized problems or issues that Porsche already have fixed or are working on fixing, and finally talk a little bit about how I will configure my car if I get one of these next year. So first of all, one of the things I really like is that now when you deploy the spoiler, you can actually see where the spoiler is at from the configurator here within the PCM, which is really nice. What I don't like is that you can't override the spoiler anymore. In the 991.2 and .1, up to 2017, the spoiler would automatically deploy at 70 miles per hour. Now it's down to 62 miles per hour to automatically deploy, but you could always override it. Like, I don't like the look of the spoiler, so if I'm doing under 100 miles an hour, I actually want the spoiler down, but it no longer lets you override it. If you're doing 60 miles an hour or more, or 100 kilometers an hour, it will deploy, doesn't matter what. Stupid ugly spoiler. Another cool option on the PCM that's new is that it gives you the option to turn off the internal sensors when you stop the car. When you turn the car off, it comes up going, hey, do you want to turn off internal sensors? What we're talking about is the alarm internal sensor. So if you're leaving your gorilla or your dog in here and you're putting the alarm on, you can turn it off. You could always do this in the older models as well by double clicking the alarm as you got out, but it was a hit or miss affair. You know, often doesn't work, so it's really cool that they've added that to it as well. Next, some small issues. Obviously, first year cars, I always strongly recommend, it doesn't matter what brand or model car you're buying, you probably should steer clear of first year cars. And Porsche 911s, this one has proven to be pretty reliable. When I read the forums, oh, God forbid reading the forums, they're just so ridiculous these days. Just people bitching and moaning about things. I think it's a waste of time. But there's only lots of people with one or two little problems here or there that have been fixed. Some engine mount problems, some starting problems, nothing major, just normal teething problems. The most consistent problems have been with the PCM freezing up or the doors not opening, but those have all been software issues that Porsche have now patched. There was also a problem with the cup holder. This part here had been cut out in the original early model cars, and coins and things could slip under the handbrake button there. They've fixed that. That's all fixed, but there are still a few outstanding little niggles, nothing that really detracts from the enjoyment of owning or driving these cars. The first one is the rust from the doorstop bolts, these bolts here. I noticed that a lot of them are rusting, and I see on the forums a lot of people having that problem. I don't think it's a rust problem. I think it's just a surface rust problem, so it's more of a cosmetic issue. Just check for that if you've got a first year car. The second one is a mistake that Porsche have made, which they're addressing very soon, and that is you can sometimes configure a car like this car has got the sports exhaust, but there's no sports exhaust button. Whoops! Yes, they realize this is an error, and it just comes down to how your car is configured, what options your car's got. But if you have sports exhaust, you should always get a sports exhaust button, and right now they don't have that, and they're fixing that shortly. Cars made after mid-December 2019 will have this fixed. So right now, if you want to turn off or on the sports exhaust, obviously you can do it through the drive mode, or you can go through the car menu and it's here, sports exhaust. But obviously you should have a sports exhaust button. So Porsche have actually published the 10 different configurations these 4 little buttons can be in, depending on what options you get, so that buyers understand what buttons they'll be getting, because they can't fit everything on, because in the good old days of the 991s, there was a million buttons, so more options you got, the more buttons got filled in. Now there's only 4 buttons, so it just depends. So I'll quickly stream them up here so you can see what those options are now. And finally, there's been a problem with the seat squeaks. And all 4 types of seats, they're all squeaking, and Porsche once again working on the fix for that. I think they just, at the moment, if you've got a first year car, they're just pulling the backs off and spraying a bunch of WD-40 in there. But yeah, all the seats seem to be having squeaking problems. So I believe they're addressing that also in the mid-December refresh. So how would I configure my one if and when I get one next year? Well, first of all, the color. Well, I'm disappointed that the green isn't a true green anymore. It's more of a green grey. I still love that color. I'll probably get that color. As for the engine, I really like the base engine more than this more powerful engine. Nothing wrong with this engine. It is fantastic, as I said. I just find it more enjoyable to drive a car with a sports car with slightly less horsepower, so I prefer the base Carrera engine. And unfortunately they're not going to be offering the base Carrera in the manual transmission, so that takes it out for me. So I'll probably get a Carrera S with a manual transmission in green. Yeah, I think that would be a very pure car. And interior, I'm not sure. The great thing about this new model is that they're so nice, even in base configuration, you don't need to spend a lot of money dressing them up like you did with the 992. The 992 really had kind of a bland interior in a lot of ways, and if you got the standard silver strip inside, it really looked cheap, so you had to buy an interior this and dress it up inside, you know. And both the ones that I purchased, I spent 10 grand on deviated stitching and interior bits and extra colors and so forth to dress up and make the interior look nice. I think the interior on the 992 is so nice just in its most basic form. I really don't expect to spend a lot of money on the interior. So yeah, it might be that my next 911 is actually my cheapest 911 ever, because they're so nice just in their base form. So moving forward, I plan to do a full options video. It's just going to take a while because I need my local dealers to get more cars in with different options so I can video them and learn about them myself. But yeah, those options videos are always very popular for people because, you know, 180, 190 options now on the 911, it becomes overwhelming to understand which is the right option for you and which isn't. So I'll do my best to demonstrate each and every single one of those options in upcoming videos. But yes, this is the 992. I know people complain about the silly gear lever and not being able to see the screen and all that sort of stuff, but really I think it's fine. I think it's a great car. I think it's more comfortable but still a thrill to drive. Yeah, I am very, very impressed with the new 911. I like the looks on the outside and inside. Great car. I hope to get one myself. I think it's a thrill to drive and more comfortable, which is good. For us old fat men, we like a little bit of comfort as well as the thrill to drive. What do you think, William? I thought so. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next video. Bye then. And if you're wondering where to acquire the ridiculous t-shirts that I wear in my videos, they're all here in my store, all your favorites, including offensive stamps and my rapid dry towels as well. Yes, Nick Murray t-shirts, being a little inappropriate since 2016.